There. Hi, how are you doing? Hope you're having a good day. I'm Kay Malone, Director of Admissions at UT San Antonio School of Dentistry. And what I'd like to talk about today is the application process. I'm sure many of you have questions as to what the committee looks for in an application. How can I make my application competitive? Well, we'll talk about that today. So there's a lot of things to discuss. So let's go ahead and get started. So we'll talk about the stats for those who were selected for 2019, just to give you an idea of what it takes academically. But then we'll look at deal breakers, things where you can have a stellar type of application in terms of GPA and debt scores and still not get an interview based on these deal breakers. Then we'll look at achievements, which are important to the admission committee, things like shadowing, an assessment of your application to include a holistic review, prerequisites, and a little bit about TMDSAS, recommendations, essays, interview, research that you might have done, non-traditional applicants that we get quite a few of, and finally photos. So here's the overall GPA distribution of the 306 students that started in 2019 for the 3 Texas schools. And as you can see, nearly 90% had at least a 3.5 GPA. And the average was 3.74. And yes, those are pretty high GPA scores to obtain. But if you look down the list, you'll see that there were a number of people that didn't quite have the super stellar GPAs, were still able to be selected by one of the 3 Texas schools because there were other things within their application that gave the schools confidence that they would be successful in dental school. In terms of DAT scores, you can see the average AA was 21.3, PA or PAT was 20.6. And again, the distribution, as you can see below. Schools look at the AA a little bit more than they look at the PAT. You can see the distribution. The thing to note that if you have a 17 DAT score, then statistically, you would have a difficult time being selected to one of the 3 Texas schools. So if you have a DAT score in that range, it would probably be to your advantage to redo that DAT. So how heavily weighted are GPA and DAT scores? Well, they are important because they are a measure of being successful, particularly in the first 2 years of school, which is pretty intense. As you can see, there are 26 to 28 semester hours. There could be reasons why your GPA DAT scores are as they are, and you can explain that in the essays. But it is important that even if you have a high GPA, high DAT scores, it is not the sole determinant for being selected for interview and also for ultimate selection. And there are a number of deal breakers. For example, no dental shadowing or dental interest. You must have that in an application because that gives you an idea if that's what I want to do with the rest of my life. No evidence of community service. That's also very important. You must have community service in your application. Poor recommendations, they are also important. A poor photo, and we'll talk about that later. A poor essay, and again, we'll talk about that later, about how to do a nice essay. And some forms of disciplinary action can be really detrimental to your application. Each school has their own minimum requirements, and these are ours. You must have at least a science GPA of 2.8 and an AA DAT score of 17. Many of these requirements are what you'll see on TMDSAS. For our school, we definitely want shadowing, and not in just one office. You need to do multiple office shadowing. Also, community service, as was mentioned, and try to do healthcare related community service. 3 letters of recommendation or an HPE packet is required. So a big question that people ask is how much shadowing is enough? You first need to do enough to determine if that's what I want to do with my life. And so since you're going to be finishing dental school as a general dentist, that is your first priority. So you need to shadow a general dentist and you need to shadow a number of general dentists. How do they run their practice? What kind of a practice is it? So you need to get that overall experience. And then beyond that, once you have a number of general dentists shadowing, then go ahead and branch out to the different specialties. The important thing is to not have most of your hours with a specialist. And it needs to be consistent over time. It needs to be consistent, not simply when it's easy for you, say during the summer or during spring break or whatever. It needs to be all the time consistent. Because if you truly want the profession, you're going to want to actively look at different shadowing opportunities. So you look at the number and you say to yourself, am I doing it just simply to get the numbers, or do I truly, truly want to learn as much as I possibly can? We do not have a magic number as some schools do. Some schools will literally tell you, you must have 75 hours of shadowing, you must have 100 hours of shadowing, and so forth. We do not have magic numbers because we know if you're in a rural location, it's much more difficult for you to get the number of hours as, say, someone in a large city. So what is meant by dental interest? A history of being familiar with and involvement in the dental profession. Dental school visits, enrichment programs, pre-dent societies are all important. And if your school does have a pre-dent society, you really need to be part of that society. You'll learn more about dentistry. You'll have the opportunity to perhaps shadow particular dentists who are in contact with that society. You'll have opportunity to do some more community service involved with the pre-dent society. So you really should be in that society if your school offers it. Of course, volunteering in dental-related community programs is also important. And knowing about current issues facing dentistry. You can address some of those in your essay, definitely when you have your interview. So it is important. You don't have to dwell on it a lot in your essay, but just enough to let us know that you're thinking about it. So looking at an application can be quite complex, and these are some of the things that we look at. Even in the academic background, we not only look at your grades, but also your load and the trend of the GPA. Are you only taking 12 hours each semester, or are you taking more and you're actually applying and pushing yourself in college? We like to see that. Your overall versus your science GPA, we don't want to see a huge gap between the two. The school that you go to is also important because we know that different colleges are a little bit more intense than others. And we know that you shouldn't have most of your hours in a community college. Impacting factors, whether you work in class and so forth while you're going to class. First-time generation, they've had to work a lot harder than others to get to the same level. They don't have the opportunities as other individuals. So your personal and economic history is also important. As I mentioned before, your recommendations, your essays, and we get a number of reapplicants. They improve their application and apply the following year and get selected. Different aspects of professionalism, extracurricular activities that you're doing. We also have a number of student athletes who apply, community service hours, interpersonal related and dental related, different types of organizations. It doesn't necessarily have to be medical or dental related, but just as long as you're in different types of organization, research activities that you might do, dental related employment, and disciplinary action, again, can affect your application. Remember that shadowing is not community service. We do a holistic review on the application, and so we look at things like success in overcoming a significant life adversity. We know that can drop a GPA. We know that you can explain that in perhaps your essay. Interpersonal related community service is what we like to see because that's what a dentist does. They're working one-on-one with individuals, and we like to see your activities more of a one-on-one type community service. Texas Mission of Mercy, of course, has a great opportunity. Health fairs, tutoring as a form of leadership, being part of organizations, and just as with shadowing, your community service needs to be consistent over time. If you are graduated from a healthcare related curriculum, be it hygiene, assistant, nurse, we've even had physicians who apply for dental school. It sort of gives you a leg up because you're already familiar with the healthcare environment. Again, employment while in college, you want to definitely document that, describe the type of employment and the hours per semester, and research accomplishment. Do you have to have research? Absolutely not. It's the type of research that you do. Some people are just doing a research just because it's part of their lab. Other individuals are actually full bore in research. It takes a lot of their time. They're publishing things. They're doing posters at a convention, things like that. Things that take away from them just purely studying. So we like to see that. Organizational membership is important. Again, extracurricular activities. The bottom line is that can you multitask? Can I do a lot of things well besides simply studying? That's what we like to look for, because once you get into dental school, you're going to be multitasking big time. We also like at those individuals who are from hometowns or county residents designated as health profession shortage areas. So here's a map of Texas. If you're in some of those darker counties there, you're from these locations, you intend to go back to these locations, then we need you. Dental schools need you, and the state of Texas needs you. And so that makes you a little bit more competitive than other individuals. Not only counties, but different areas within counties. For instance, even in large cities, there's areas that have a very low number of dentists. These are the prerequisites that you can see there. Most schools have the same prerequisites. We do not require microbiology. Other schools do, but we highly, highly recommend it. You can see where biochemistry is bold. So when we ask many pre-medical, pre-dental students, what course do you wish you could have really learned well? Many of them say biochemistry. So when you take biochemistry, don't just take it to make a grade in it. Really, really try to learn that class. And also consider taking some upper level science courses. So more upper level biochem, microphysiology, again, you can see down the list there. If your school offers a pathology course, that would be great. Many of you have taken anatomy or plan on taking anatomy. That would be a great course to take. It is a requirement by some of the Texas schools. At this time, it is not a requirement by us, but it's very highly, highly recommended. And even if you can take a few business and accounting courses, that would also be nice. So even if you don't plan to apply for dental school for many years from now, it's sort of a good idea to go to the TMDSAS website, if you're a Texas resident, and pick up the application handbook. It talks about all the things that you need to do in order to apply, and it's quite involved. You download that handbook and you'd be surprised at how large that handbook is. So it just gives you an idea of what you need to do in the future. Check out the Adio Go Dental site, great resource for everything that has to do with dentistry and being competitive, dental schools and so forth. The window for TMDSAS is from May through September. For those who are non-Texas residents, then you have to go through ASTAS. First round for us, for interview processes from August to January. The first round of acceptances, which is nationally, is the first part of December. There's craft shows, this is from TMDSAS. It's really important to not apply late. As you can see, there's a big difference between those who submit late and those who get interviewed late. So it's very important for you to go ahead and apply early. Not necessarily too early, because if you apply right in May, we may not look at those applications right away. So if you want to do more shadowing, more community service, why don't you do some of that and then apply just a little bit later. If you don't plan on doing that, then go ahead and put it in May. So for our subcommittee, we look at the application the Monday after your interview, a score is given, and everything is electronic. So once you push the button for TMDSAS, you cannot add to it. You can't send us an email and say, add this to my application. The only time you can do that is when you get interviewed, you will give any kind of updates to the interviewer. And so we have a number of different rounds, like all the schools in Texas, we have a number of rounds. Students put down their deposit, and the rounds last through late April, early May, and then an alternate list is generated. All right, let's talk about letters of recommendation. So what makes a good letter of recommendation? Well, it's an account of qualities not necessarily tied to your academic performance. And so you can have a health profession and community packet if it's from your school, or 3 individual letters of evaluation. And now you can have a 4th optional letter. We, as a school, does not require a letter from a practicing dentist. Other schools may, and so they'll normally be part of that packet. But the evaluator needs to know you well. both academically and personally. And the person that can do that the best is a professor. A dentist may know you personally, but they really don't know very much about you academically. So that's why we like to have professors that you've worked with at the school. They can talk about you beyond simply the academics. How do you relate to other students in the class? Do you come to see them if there's any kind of questions and things of that nature? So those are the individuals that we're really looking at that give a little bit more weight for those who are professors. What about your personal statement? Personal statement is quite involved. Your essay is a big part of your application. So you discuss your motivation and philosophy for seeking a career in dentistry. Indicate your goals that are relevant to the profession, and it just provides an insight into who you are. So within that essay or personal statement, you want to state challenges that you've had to overcome. You want to have a sort of a strong introduction and a good conclusion. You want to quadruple check your grammar, have someone else take a look at it. You can take a look at something over and over again and still not see that error. But do not make most of your essay about your mission trip or the patient that you saw or your shadowing experience. It's only there to enable you to segue into why I want to be a dentist. What is my desire? What is my motivation? You can also talk about some of your strengths and weaknesses. So within your personal statement, have you articulated why you passionately want to be a dentist? Why you should select me over these other large number of applicants? How can I contribute to the profession of dentistry? And do you know something about current and future dental issues? And even for those who are reapplicants, you want to state why I still want to do this, why I still want to be a dentist, and provide a few examples of what you've currently done to show that you still have the passion. Now, there is a personal characteristic essay. This is the second essay required by TMDSAS. Describe any personal characteristics or experiences that would add to the educational experience of others. Be it you were a tutor, you have, let's say you're not a biology major, things that because you have a different kind of major, you can help other students and so forth. You may want to jump on some of those type of topics. Remember what the essay is asking. We have a number of individuals who start off pretty well, and then they go right back to the first essay. So we don't want to see that. If you're going to do it, stay on message with the second essay. And then there's a third optional essay. Briefly state any unique circumstance or life experiences that is relevant to your application. Address any issues which have not been previously addressed. And again, this is an essay that is an optional essay, but I would say probably 90% of the people that we interview have done all three essays. And you can actually do these essays if you think about it. You can actually do one of these essays. If you don't think you can, talk to your friends, talk to your family. They'll give you some great suggestions. The interview. So let's say you're lucky enough to get an interview. It's sort of tough to get interviewed. There's a lot of different applicants out there, and just to get an interview is saying a lot about you. So what do we look for in an interview? We look at your composure, oral communication skills, social skills, evidence, again, of interest in and knowledge of the profession. So you want to know where you are. If you're invited to an interview at a particular school, then you want to do a little bit of research on that school because they're going to ask you many times, why do you want to come to this school? And so you'll be able to give them a good answer. Don't be too casual while you're getting your interview. Remember, it's a formal interview. And are you passionately happy that you're getting an interview? And of course you should be, because not everyone gets an interview. Remember that the interview begins the moment you walk in the building. How do you greet the staff? How do you interact with the other students or individuals who are getting interviewed? So you would definitely want to keep that in mind. You do not want to be late for the interview. You want to give yourself plenty of time, get there early, walk to the location, know exactly where it is, go back to your car, relax a little bit, and then 15 minutes before, get out of the car and go to the room. For our school, the interviewer only has the essays. Those who interview students at our school know only your essay. We do not know your GPA. We do not know your DAT scores. Research. Well, how important is research? As mentioned, do you have to have research? Absolutely not. You do not have to have research in your application. It all depends how much research did you do. What is the level of research that you did? So it can be very important depending on the level of participation. As for non-traditional students, they're viewed very positively. We assume that they're more mature than perhaps other students are, more settled in their goals. They've been there, done that, and they're very, very motivated to go into that profession. So for those who are non-traditional, if they make that career change, they have to really show that they've made that change pretty significantly and that now they want a dental career that shows in their application. What about photographs? Photographs are used to confirm the interview attendance, but they may be reviewed as part of the application. TMDSAS still requires a photo, so you want to make the most of that. You are applying to a professional school and you should project professionalism and seriousness in what you're doing. So you shouldn't have a t-shirt on, you shouldn't have just photos that do not show any type of professionalism at all. So dress nicely. It's almost as if you're applying for a job. You're applying for a professional job. It's not going to happen right away. It's going to happen 4 years from now, but you have to picture that. I'm applying for a professional job. What should my photo look like if I'm applying for a professional job right now? But of course, you still want to smile, which a lot of people don't want to do. Just smile. We just want to see a nice photo. So no neutral background, no landscape and so forth. And be careful of the size of the photo. It's only 100 kilobytes, and many cameras can do several gigabytes now. So when you take the photo, make sure that you can get it into the application. If you have more questions on the application process, make sure that you give us an email at dsadmissions@uteska.edu. We'll be glad to answer those questions for you. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you learned something here about the application process. Have a good day.